你好，
你好.
你好，
안녕하세요.
hello.
কেমন আছেন? konnichiwa. এনে পেরে খাজুনি. Assalamu alaikum. আমার নাম Maisha.
So this goes all the way back to my father's side great-grandparents. They lived in a very poor area in the Philippines, in Luzon, where they didn't really have anything. They came from very let's say disadvantaged line. So they didn't really have anything to work with. They lived near the mountains. They farmed off the land. So it wasn't very easy for them. For Christmas, they didn't really get anything, or any holiday. They celebrated without really any food. They lived in a very small house. So it was fine for him. He was familiar with it, but I can't really imagine living like that. My mother's side parents, they were the complete opposite. My grandfather owned a mining company, and he owned his own estate. So they were living luxury. But for me, I was pretty lucky because I was born where we were allowed to live in with my mother's side parents. So I was able to live as a normal child, but I never really got to experience living like my dad did. Basically, I moved from place to place, didn't know where I really was. And that was before my dad decided to go to America. The transition to America was a very rough one. My dad left in 2008 to go to New York, and that left my mom to raise 3 crazy kids. Being fatherless for 2 years was an experience I don't want to remember, because it was usually just me coming home as a first and second grader, not experiencing any kind of father to son moment because he wasn't there. And my mom was stressed out. My grandmother always trying to comfort her. I just finished 3rd grade in Palawan. My mom finally got us visas to the USA. I came in, we didn't have our own place yet, so we lived with a friend. I missed a whole month of school there, and I decided to go in October to start school here in the USA. I started here 4th grade. My English wasn't very good. I had a very heavy accent, still have a very heavy accent. And I really didn't make any friends here because, I was the generic Asian kid. I guess I just tried to adjust really hard, maybe a little too hard. That's why 4th and 5th grade was just me trying to get through academically. I wasn't really focusing on my social aspects of life. Now, middle school was something I never really prepared for. It was where really the teasing started. But then 7th grade was kind of a turning point in my life, because you meet many people, you figure out who's real and who's fake, who really sticks with you till the end. And I was doing great in school. I had friends finally, and I mean, my parents were reunited. They were happy. 8th grade was really the exciting part. Now, 8th grade, I got nicknamed in a good way, like Los Angeles. Middle school teaches you a lot of lessons, because since my parents, they didn't really have anything. They always taught me to be happy with what you have, make as many friends as you can, choose your friends carefully, and just live life according to your values. Because people who tell you what to do, they're the ones being weak for telling you what to do, and it's your decision to do it or not. So they basically taught me to be independent and be dependent when it's only necessary.
So my grandparents and my parents have been through a lot, and they helped me to get where I am today. So around 1950, during the Korean War, when North Korea attacked South Korea, my grandparents actually lived on my mom's side. My grandparents on my mom's side actually lived in North Korea, and they ran away to South Korea. So my grandpa was around 14 years old, which is a little bit younger than I am. And when the American soldiers came to his village, they had to get out of the village, so they left all of their stuff behind, and they went with the American soldiers on like their ships, and they went to South Korea. I never realized what my grandparents have been through. I didn't even know they were from North Korea until like last year. So with his two brothers and his grandpa, he crossed the border with the American soldiers, but there were a lot of people who ran away from North Korea. And a lot of the family members lost each other along the way. My grandpa actually got separated from his two brothers and his dad. Like on the ships, they didn't have that much food, so he would tell me that they would eat whatever they had. They would eat snakes. They would try to find like seeds. They would like crush up the bones or whatever they had. Like they would just do anything to try to find food. And on Christmas, they actually got like a little bowl of like rice porridge, like it's called juk, and like they would be so thankful for that. And even though it was so small, so it made me realize that when my grandparents always told me, don't waste your food, eat all of the bones. Like even if I left any meat on like the bones, they would tell me to eat the whole thing. And I realized that because they realized like that they have to be more thankful for like every bit of food that they have, because it's just a really rare and precious thing, and we should be really thankful for it. During their like journey to South Korea, it was around November and December, so my grandpa would tell me how it was so cold that like him and his friends would get like their blood vessels on their legs would swell up and they would get sores, and he still has some of the scars and the sores from them. It was a really tough voyage, but they eventually got to South Korea, and he met my grandma, who also came from North Korea, but she was an only child, so she had like a farm, and she came with her grandma, so she was better off, but it was still really tough for both of them. So after my grandparents met, they had my mom and her two younger siblings. My mom moved with her family from Seoul, and they moved to New York when she was 9 years old. And it was really, really tough for them when they came to America, because they started out, they didn't have that much money. It was hard for them in school because they had to learn a whole new language, and they had to like adapt to the culture. And it was really hard for them to fit in, especially when they didn't have enough money for like clothes or like good food or anything. So there was a lot of discrimination. And it was especially hard for my grandparents because they had to do anything that they could to have a stable income to support like my mom and her siblings. My mom would tell me how her parents wouldn't come home like until really late at night, and so right after school she would come home, she would cook, she would clean, she would do everything and take care of her younger siblings. And it's hard to like imagine that, because nowadays I just come home and I like come home to like a meal. I don't really have to cook much, and I realize how thankful I should be that my grandparents went through everything that they did so that I could have the privilege of being able to get like a better education and just be able to be more comfortable at home. My mom actually told me when I was younger to go to more of the mom and pop stores, which are like the stores at the side of the road that are mostly run by like, families and stuff, because it's just so hard to support your family and like income when you only have like a small store that people don't really go to, because especially nowadays when there's bigger stores like Costco and Walmart, it's just so hard to compete. So helped me realize that there's like different styles of life out there that I don't experience. It just helps me to be more thankful for everything that I have. And I feel like we should thank our grandparents and our parents more often and ask them about their stories and what they went through, because I never knew any of this until I learned about the Korean War, and I realized I wondered what part my grandparents had in that, and then they told me their stories. So I feel like we should be more thankful for everything and that they went through for us.
Hi, my name is Maisha. My family is from Bangladesh. My mom, my dad, and my older sister were all born in Bangladesh. My sister and my mom moved here when my sister was 8 months old, and my dad moved the year before that. And prior to that, my dad lived in Germany. My parents originally wanted to live in Germany and raise a family in Germany, but they somehow ended up in America. And they don't really like to talk about it. They're very like nationalistic. They really love their homeland. They don't really like being in America. They think it's like a really big struggle, and I don't blame them. Like, growing up, there's like a bunch of like they didn't really go with like through the struggle that I'm going through, but they have like their own like their struggles are more financial and like political and stuff, and then mine are just more social. So there's like an American identity and a Bengali identity, and I'm also Muslim, so there's that clashing Muslim identity. So I mean, like, when I first introduce myself to people, they don't think I'm Asian, or they'll be like, "You're Indian, right?" And then they'll think, "Oh, you're Hindu, right?" And I'm neither. Bangladesh is a very, very small country that used to be part of India, but declared independence from like the British colony in like 1945, and then from India in 1974, something like that. I don't know. My dad made me watch a documentary about it, but I didn't pay attention, which, like, growing up, I wasn't proud or happy with who I was, because, like, you tell people, "Oh yeah, I'm from Bangladesh," and they're like, "What's that?" And then you'd say, "Oh, that's an Asia," and they're like, "But you don't look Asian, you're not Asian." And I don't know, I've always clicked more with the Asian community than like the South Asian community, because I thought there was like a bad air surrounding the South Asian community, because it's usually associated with like terrorism and stuff like that, so I wasn't always comfortable with that. But like, they talk about like India and Pakistan a lot, India being like a big producer, and Pakistan, like, with their strong Muslim identity, and nobody knows what Bangladesh is. And so I feel silenced a lot in like media and in like school and like representation. I guess like South Asian actors and like celebrities and people these days, they're all Indian, and maybe not even that many Pakistanis, and definitely no like Bengalis out there. Like, people always think like, "Oh, look at all these Indian actors," and they think Bollywood, like, "Oh, you guys have like a great film industry and media industry," but like there's actually like zero representation, and that's very hard when you're growing up, because you don't know like who to look up to. And then so I grew up with like no role models whatsoever. I didn't really look up to my parents that much either, because I have a strange relationship with them, because they're very like, yes, Bangladesh is our country, and that's our culture, and that's who we are, but I'm kind of like, but I'm also American, and I'm also Bengali, so I don't really know. It's like a seesaw type of thing. And I know I'm not alone on this. Like, many Asian Americans, they often struggle with like their native culture and their new American culture. And when I was younger, I tried my hardest to reject every part of my native culture. When I was younger, so for Muslim holidays, we put henna on our hands. And then when I was in kindergarten, we were playing, we were playing like Ring Around the Rosie or something, and we all had to hold hands. And then the girl next to me, she said, "I'm not gonna hold your hand until you wash it." And then I said, "But no, it's like this painting thing that we do. It's like a traditional cultural thing." And then she's like, "But it's dirty, your hands are dirty, you're dirty." And from then on, I've never worn henna again. And then now it's kind of like ironic, because henna is like a big thing now. And like henna tattoos, like everyone loves them. But like, they didn't love them when I was younger, and they didn't love me when I was younger. They're just appropriating the culture. Oh, okay. So, in elementary school, ethnically at least, it was divided. You were either white or Chinese, strictly Chinese. I looked for other types of Asian there, but literally everyone was Chinese that was Asian, and so I didn't fit in with either group, and more importantly, I didn't look like either group. So, and that was like blatantly obvious by the first day of school. Like I looked really different. I was tan. I wasn't fully black. And little kids, you'd think they're like really innocent and stuff, but like they're exposed to a lot of media coverage, and like they don't see people like me like being like covered by the media, so they're not familiar with you or your culture, and they're kind of insensitive to that, or just like really sensitive to that. Like I was kind of rejected by both groups. I didn't have any friends in first grade. I made one friend, and that was after a year of like asking her every day, hey, will you be my friend? And she was a Chinese girl, and we didn't become friends until the end of the year because her friend was moving, so she's like, all right, I have no friends now, I'm gonna be friends with you. I mean, we're good friends now though, so that's fine. But around 5th grade, I guess like all the Asians in my class, they started picking up like card games and stuff, and like all the white kids, they would just like talk with each other, and like I didn't fit in with either. They told me, oh, learn these card games, then you can sit with us, but it's like, I don't like card games, so can't I just sit with you guys regardless? And they're like, no, but we're gonna be playing card games the whole time. You're just gonna be sitting there, like you shouldn't sit with us then if you're not gonna play. So I sat alone a lot toward the end of elementary school, and at that young age, I didn't realize that I was being isolated based on, I guess it wasn't fully based on race, but I think race did play a large factor from the beginning on how people treated me. When I got to middle school, there was a lot of East Asian people, not just Chinese this time. There were also like a good handful of whites, but not that many. And there was very few South Asian people like me, but I never got along with them because it kind of seemed like we just had really different like personalities that like I never like spoke to them, and I kind of felt weird like that there was this duty that I had to get along with them, but I didn't. Like the kid in my class, he didn't like me because I was very unathletic, and he was like an athletic all-star. And so, like, he didn't want to talk to me. It's like, what do you mean you can't throw a football? That's, like, the easiest thing. It's like, oh, but no, sports are not my thing. So, in middle school, I then became more closely associated with the East Asian part of my school. And, they accepted me, and they were very nice about it, too. They didn't like exclude me when they were playing card games. They're like, oh, you don't want to play card games? That's okay. Or some of them even taught me how to play card games. That was nice. But then there was always still like, you did sense a culture shock, like when I would hang out with my friends. Like you could physically see a difference. There, all these pale East Asian people, and then the one tan person. And then they also talked a lot more about East Asian culture, like K-pop, and I wasn't into K-pop, so I felt really left out then. Or when they would all speak to each other in like Chinese or Korean, and it's like, I don't know that, I don't know what you're saying. But they did teach me how to use chopsticks, which was nice. I know how to use chopsticks now. So I guess from that build-up, like, I did feel a strong sense of isolation. And from like the end of 8th grade on, I kind of became more of like a racial advocate for people, except I guess like I didn't start accepting who I was as a South Asian person until I hit high school. Like by 8th grade, even though I was like advocating for, like social justice and stuff like that, like I said before, I associated more with the Asian community as a big whole rather than South Asian. I don't really know if there's a specific point at which I started realizing that it's okay to be who I am. I guess because like my sister was in her school Muslim Student Association, and she invited me to their events a lot. Oh, she went to STI, so they had a lot more Bengalis there. Like their whole MSA is literally all Bengalis. So I mean, after talking and hanging out with them, like I realized like, oh, Bengali people aren't bad. They're pretty chill actually, because I'd never been exposed to that large of a group of people like me. So from then on, I realized that it's very important to embrace who you are and like your background. Like, I think there are only 6 Bengalis in our grade, the junior grade, and we're all different as can be. Like, honestly, like, I don't even know. Like, some are more traditional and some are more Americanized, and then there's me in the middle. And I've always kind of been in the middle, and I guess that's okay. Trying to maintain that balance, I think that's important in life. Because, I mean, we're still in America, but I think it's important to realize where your roots are from and never to forget your culture. My biggest regret regarding my identity would be like never learning Bengali, because like as a kid, my mom would try to teach it to me, but I kept rejecting it. Because, like I said before, I didn't want to be associated with being Bengali. I always wished that I was like from a country people knew about, like India or Pakistan. In fact, like I've always associated Pakistan with like fairer skinned people. So then, a big thing in South Asia are skin bleaching creams. So I have to admit I did try that once at one point in my life, and it did lighten my skin, but like it wasn't good for me emotionally or physically. Those are bad for you. Don't do that. But then I just remember in middle school at one point realizing my biggest insecurity. I don't have that many physical insecurities. I don't hate the way I look. I think I'm a very pretty person. But when I was in middle school, I realized my biggest insecurity was not that I was short or that I was too skinny, but rather that I didn't like my skin color. I thought it was a weird combination of like pales and browns and tans and like a bit of yellows and pinks, and I didn't know. Yeah. Like I would look at myself in the mirror and like count the different colors I saw on my face and even on my arm. Like I have like a birthmark, so it's paler in some regions than it is like compared to the rest of my body. And I always thought I wish I could be as pale as those pale marks on my birthmark. But then I got to high school and I realized that like physical looks don't matter, and that the skin color I have now is something I should really be proud of. Like my mom is super pale and my dad is super dark, so I am the nice tan combination of both. And I think that's very nice, and I think it's very unique, everyone's skin color, because no two skin colors are the same deep down inside, I think. And people often ask me, oh, why aren't you in Desi Club? Do you not like the culture or something? But no, I like Bollywood culture. I'm not a big Bollywood junkie. I don't watch all their movies, but their dances are cool. I'll admit that. But so many people ask like, oh, why are you in Asian American Club? It's all Chinese kids in there. It's like, no, it's not all Chinese kids. There's multiracial Asian kids. There are multiracial half white, half Asian kids. And then like, you don't see enough like brown kids in Asian American Club, so I guess that's one reason I joined it. To like I remember the first meeting I went to, it was talking about Asian stereotypes in media, and then I spoke up about like how the Indian is always portrayed as the Bollywood junkie. or the nerd that gets bullied all the time. And then, you know, everyone agreed with me and they're like, yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way. We always thought about the East Asian stereotype, you know, like Jackie Chan, like with Kung Fu and stuff like that. So I think it was then I realized that there needs to be like Asia is such a big continent, and yet like Asian American Club, it had like such a small skewed vision when I started. So I think it was important for me to join that so we could bring like a new face to it, and I'm always advocating for other people to join it too. Even people who aren't Asian, but just like anyone who's been exposed to the racial inequalities of life. Even if you're white, you have experienced racial inequalities in life. If it's not against you, then you've witnessed it against other people, definitely.